Can you believe it? It's me, God's comic Brad Stine, and this is Brad Stine Has Issues, where comedy, conservatism, and Christianity collide in a cacophony of clarity and nothing but clarity. Tonight, we have a very special guest, only the second Olympian we have ever had on, Ashlee Bond, an equestrian Olympian. That's right. She's a horse rider who was in the Olympics and is going to talk about horses and riding horses, maybe side saddle, maybe saddleless. Maybe she will ride inside of the horse. Perhaps there's a AI horse or a mechanical horse that she's involved with. I don't want to ruin, I don't want to bury the lead, or maybe there's something coming, but hang on to your horses, because we got Ashlee Bond. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to me, God's comic Brad Stine. But the guy that you are just about to hear from is my son Wyatt Stine. He also shows up every now and again because he's my sidekick. And I think it's perfect irony that a sidekick would be the way we introduce you on the special edition of an equestrian horse rider. Wyatt, what's it like being part of the first podcast of December 2024?
I don't think this is the first podcast that's ever been created in December 2024, but it's nice anyway.
No, it's our. I mean, for us.
For us.
Yeah, referencing our. Particular.
I thought you ignored the Decemberween podcast that just got announced.
No, I just meant that we are casting this pod in December of 2024.
And then we're casting it out into the world.
I think that's how you. I think that's what it meant. I think that's probably what podcasting meant.
I always thought they called it that because the first one was a fishing channel.
No. The first one came from iPods, which is where people were.
So people started by streaming on iPods.
They did.
And then they're like, the screen is way too tiny. I need to go to a computer.
Yeah, I think that it was all audio only. Matter of fact, I don't know if you know this or not, but iPods where people would gather their music and so forth. And some guy came up with the idea, well, what if we were to have a show or do other things on this? And we actually had that guy on our show. Do you remember his name?
No.
Yeah. Well, then I guess the people will have to do a little bit of research.
Yep. And by research, we of course mean watch our podcast.
You better believe it. What? It's a special time. It's the last month of the year 2024. Anything special about this month that maybe we should bring up, being as it is brand new?
It's the only December in 2024.
Yes.
So this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
It is, and it's exciting that we get to be part of it, that we get to bring this, hopefully, great, interesting information to our people who are watching. They are our people. They are people from Nick Kress, or as we like to call him perfectly in December, Saint Nick, to Ashley Haas, Karen Boyd, Stan Stinson, Paula Faye Marie Rauchi, Michael Bushquacker, or the Quackenbush, but we call him the Bushquacker. We got Danny Herring. We've got numerous folks from all walks of life coming in, stepping in, saying hi. And we have a very special guest, Ashlee Bond. She's a rider of horses. I was watching a show the other day. It was an old Western where they were riding their horse into town. And for some reason, and I don't know if this has ever happened to you, have you ever said a word and just kept saying the word and suddenly it just sounded really ludicrous to you? What am I even saying?
I've talked about this before, actually, how there were some words that if you say them enough times, they just stop sounding like words.
Yes.
But there's also words that no matter how often you say them, they always sound like words, and that's interesting.
Well, that would be interesting, especially if you could show us an example of a word that sounds unwordy and a word that continues to sound even more wordish.
Well, tying into the whole Western theme, spaghetti.
Okay.
That's already kind of an odd one.
Yeah.
But if you keep saying it, spaghetti, 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 spaghetti. Already, I am like, am I sure this isn't a word I'm saying?
Well, I think so. What happens, though, is you just start breaking it down into the sounds, because a word is simply a combination of sounds. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think it just suddenly the sounds begin to lose the instant interpretation that we give to words, and we just interpret them immediately. It's why people that are trying to learn a new language always say the same thing. You guys talk so fast. Well, they don't. They don't talk any faster than anybody else. But when you're learning a language, you have to hear the word, stop for a second, interpret it. What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? And then move on. Well, if you aren't doing it quickly enough, they've said the rest of the sentence. By the time you've interpreted this word that you get stuck on, they've already finished the sentence. So it seems like, wait till I nail each word so I can follow along. So it feels like it's fast only because you interpret, which we don't normally do when you are fluent in a language. It's instantaneously. You don't even realize you're interpreting it. It just is an automatic interpretation that happens without even thinking. You don't even realize that you are analyzing the word and instantly drawing a conclusion. Why?
Yeah, basically, that's my thoughts on it.
What about the word that does always sound like a word? You brought that up.
That one, I knew it would be tricky.
Yeah.
Bringing that up because I'm not gonna lie. I've done it before, but like I forget all the words that like I've never had a problem with.
Okay.
So I could try.
I'd rather you're not, because it's going to sound silly.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna sound like spaghetti.
It will.
Yeah.
And it's going to get old fast.
But I think you can agree that there are some words that just they always sound right, no matter what. Right?
I don't know about that. There are words that I like, and there are words that are elegant off your tongue. But I cannot say that any word suddenly seems like a word and this one doesn't. I think it.
Really?
Have you ever? Here's another phenomenon. Have you ever stared at yourself in the mirror and suddenly you didn't know who you were looking at?
No,
is that actually
no. I've
me?
never done that. I have, however, looked in the mirror and seen some other person in the room, and I'm like, "Hey, what are you doing in here?"
Give me an example of that.
Well, I mean, I'll just be like walking, and like it'll be in a completely empty room.
Yeah.
Then I'll look in the mirror, and there's someone else there, and then I'll like turn around to see who it is, and they're gone.
Oh.
So I think basically, long story short, our house is haunted.
Oh, well, I guess you never had that experience where you just stared at yourself, and eventually you're almost like, is that me?
No, listen, I think I would know me if I saw me.
So you've
Then
never
again, I've never seen me, so I guess I wouldn't know.
So you've never had that experience where you felt weird, like, that's me. I'm inside of that flesh encasement. That's me. But you find yourself inside of yourself like, that's me, but I'm...
No, but I have seen someone who looks exactly like me in a mirror, but I've never seen myself.
All right. Well, listen, I got to say this. I was thinking about this idea of horses because we're going to be speaking with Ashlee Bond today, an equestrian Olympian, and I was watching this old. Why does it seem like this drops out every now and again when I talk?
Because you keep moving away from the mic.
Oh, okay.
It's a directional mic, so you have to be like right on top of it.
Okay. Well, anyways, all right. Well, if you hear that, let me know. So, anyways, I was watching this old cowboy television show, and they're riding onto their horse, and suddenly it occurred. And this is why I'm bringing up the names or words. Or have you ever looked at yourself and suddenly you felt like, is that even me? How is that who I am? But I suddenly watching this guy, and it suddenly seemed ludicrous to me that a human being is sitting on an animal, that they're like sitting on the back of an animal and making it walk around. And that's how we used to get around. And it was pretty sophisticated. But it suddenly didn't seem, oh yeah, he's just riding a horse. It seemed weird. They found an animal and then said, you know what, we've decided we're going to make you walk us around while we sit on your back. And it just really seemed odd suddenly. It didn't seem normal. It seemed weird.
Well, I think what happened was back then people were like, man, I want to go over to that like hill over there, but it's really far away and I've only got 2 legs. And then they just see a horse like, wait a minute, that has 4 legs.
Yeah.
Mathematically, it should go twice as fast.
Okay.
So what if I convince the horse to help me? And so that's how horse riding was born. Because mathematically, horses go twice as fast as people. Because they have twice as many legs.
Okay, so is that what they mean by horse sense?
Yeah. I've never actually heard of horse sense. Is that an actual thing?
Yeah, it's called horse sense. I don't know what it means other than, and some you can look up, White, if you want to give the illusion of intelligence. But somebody says if you have horse sense, I'm not sure what that is. Anyways, but I just wondered if you ever had these weird experiences where things just suddenly seemed weird and you found yourself in a world that seemed abstract and disconnected, like you're watching the world. I've done that as when I've done comedy before.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Like, when you're thinking of a concept, like a routine, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, this applies to way more than this one niche thing. This applies to, like, everything.
Well, what I was getting at was actually what I was getting at was like I've performed and went into overdrive, not overdrive, went into, what's the term? Anyways, I just, it's like I'm watching myself do the show, but I'm disconnected. I'm thinking of other things. I'm kind of tired. I want to get out of here, but I'm doing the routine and people are laughing and whatever, but it's like I'm autopilot.
Yeah.
That's it. So it's like it's happening for me, but I'm kind of ready to check out. That used to happen, especially like your tour. Like back in the day when I did clubs and you had to do 3 shows on a Saturday. It's like by the 3rd show, you're like, I want out of here. So anyways, it reminded me of that. But anyways, so Ashley's a really interesting person because I don't know a lot about horses. But you know what? Do you know that there's a fear of horses called equinophobia?
Really?
Equinophobia.
So, like, what part of the horse are they afraid of? Like the tail or the hooves or...
I think it's a composite. I think it's a horse composite. I think.
So what you're saying is if I showed someone with that a severed horse hoof, they'd be fine?
Well, maybe, or they might find that make them uneasy.
Yeah, or they'd ask like some questions like, who are you? How'd you get in here? Why do you have a horse hoof? You know, unnecessary questions for the task at hand. You know,
one of the most unsettling scenes in movie history was in The Godfather.
The Godfather, yeah, the horse head.
He ends up with a horse head. It just seemed very. Sleeping in a bloody bed to me is off-putting.
Yeah,
but to have it also associate, it'd be bad enough to wake up and there's blood everywhere. But at least you're like, well, am I okay? I'm fine. So I don't know. It'd be weird. Well, but you might be able to get through it. But to find a severed giant horse head, and by the way, if you look at a horse head, it's kind of weird. It's this long face, and it's weird. It actually brings up a joke. Horse walks into a bar, sits down, orders a drink. Bartender looks at him and says, "Hey, why the long face?" But that's for another time, Wyatt.
I was thinking of that exact same joke.
Yeah, it's an old one.
I'm sad you didn't finish it because I guarantee you there's someone in the audience that's just like, well, tell me what the horse say.
Yeah. Well, you realize clearly that people have fears of horses and fears of other things. Matter of fact, I took the liberty of figuring out what the fear of dogs are. Cynophobia. Cyno means dog in Greek.
Really?
Cynophobia. Yep. So, Wyatt, I'm going to ask you a couple and see if you can figure out what these are.
Okay.
What would be thanatophobia?
Thanatophobia. Fish. Fear of fish.
No, good try, but no.
Thanatophobia.
Thanatophobia.
Thanatophobia. Fear of the ocean?
No. You seem to have an aquatic theme, though. You tried
I don't
fish.
know. It's the. It makes me think fish for some reason.
Yeah, it's fear of death.
Fear of death. I thought that was just common sense.
How about pontophobia? Pontophobia.
Fear of thinking?
No.
Like pondering?
No, it's a good one, though.
Shoot. I'm guessing this is all Greek or Latin.
Could be pantophobia. It's P-A-N-T-O. Panto or pantophobia. Does that help? Pantophobia?
Shoot. Ponto. Fear of parents?
No. It's the fear of everything.
What do you mean
You're
everything?
just afraid of everything.
If you're afraid of everything, then by that logic, you are also afraid of not being afraid of everything.
What's phobia? Phobia.
The fear of being afraid.
Fear of fear.
Yeah.
And to be fear of horses is equinophobia. The fear of dogs is cynophobia. Fear of fear is phobiaphobia. Fear of death is thanatophobia. Fear of everything is pontophobia. And the fear of cats is rational. So that brings us to another, what?
I was going to say, if panthophobia is fear of everything, what's the fear of nothing called? Didn't think that too far ahead, now did you?
Boulderphobia?
You're just making it up at this point.
Boulderphobia? No. Courageophobia? I don't know what.
Oh, wouldn't that be the fear of, like, courage or something?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Anyway, I will look it up. But in the meantime, horse sense is literally just another way of saying common sense.
Common sense, yeah, it's horse sense, yeah. And so we, at one time in our human history, believed that horses had the same sense that humans did. Wyatt? Doesn't that seem a little fishy?
Nilophobia.
A meal?
No, you know, like a nihilist?
Yes.
Nilophobia.
Is fear of?
Fear of nothing. Fear of nothingness, technically.
Interesting. Nihilist, yeah, because life has no meaning, so why
Exactly,
fear?
yeah.
Just fear nothing.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I wonder if you are fearful. Can you do me a favor? Look up the fear of Christmas.
I will, but before that,
Yeah.
the next thing in the phobia list
Yeah.
was undenophobia. O-U-D-E-N. How do you spell that? How do you pronounce that?
O-U-D-E-N?
Yeah, how would you pronounce that?
Udinophobia?
Udenophobia is the fear of the number 0.
Interesting.
Honestly,
What's the fear of Christmas?
feel...
So I'll bet there is. Could it be Yulephobia? Could it be Santaphobia?
Oh, God.
Yeah. Okay.
Christogenitalicophobia.
Christogenitaliaphobia?
It is C-H-R-I-S-T, makes sense.
Yeah.
O-U-G-E-N, kind of okay. N-I,
Geniophobia.
N-I-A-T-I-K.
Sheesh.
What even? Why?
Well, listen, the reason I bring it up is because we are in December. This is Christmas season, and we are heading towards the end of 2024. It certainly has taken on a dimension that many of us did not expect with the election of this new president coming in January 20th, if he makes it, if they don't take him out beforehand. But Christmas, I always found it a special time of year, an exciting time of year. It felt beautiful. It felt lights and excitement and so forth and so on. But I also realized that there are people, and it comes up every year, that are not comfortable with Christmas, Wyatt. They find it, and I'm talking about Christ follower Christians. They find it paganistic and fearful. Matter of fact, I did today. I don't know all of you guys out there who are watching Brad Stine Has Issues, but I have a daily Brad. It's called your daily Brad. It's a takeoff on the idea of daily bread, which is devotional. I don't know if they probably still make them, but they would come to you in the mail. It's a little 30-day paperback, and it would just give you a devotion for the day. And so Daily Brad's was my devotion for the day. I get up, I say, God, tell me what you want me to say. I start my camera on my phone, and I just begin to talk. And whatever it is, I send it to you, and you stick it on the internet. So today I thought I would start discussing a little bit about this idea of Christmas, because people that I know and love and respect, some of them, have an issue with Christmas. And so I really began doing some research, thinking it through, trying to understand if this is something that we need to fear. Is there something I'm missing? And I did a daily Brad about it. And so I want to show you guys that instead of why should I repeat myself? I already did it. But also maybe to get you guys to subscribe to Brad Stine Has Issues, my YouTube channel. You need to subscribe. You need to hit the notification and the like button. You need to share it, because we're trying, our hope this year, I think we've gotten up to 30,000 or maybe 35,000 100,000 subscriptions. We want to get to 100,000 if we can for next year. That's 75,000 more. So the only way we can do it is people that like what I'm doing, send it out and share it and thank it. But anyways, I want to show you this as a way to show you another thing you might be interested in. If you keep your eyes open and hit that notification button and subscribe to it, you just might be able to watch some Daily Breads. Right? If you would, hit today's Daily Bread, and then you guys can give it a look. Hello, Earth. It's God's Comic Brad Stine. This is your Daily Bread. I want to talk to you if you are trying to become like a disciple. That's rough. Where's your heart? Where does your heart desire? What does it long for? The reason I bring this up is I've been doing a lot of listening to and some research on Christmas. This is December of 2024 when I'm taping this. And there's people out there who believe that to celebrate Christmas is evil, that it's actually a pagan holiday, Saturnalia, that it's a worship of demonic spirits and or gods, and that it uses pagan rituals, tree, lighting candles, I believe, mistletoe, things that definitely were used by pagans to give significance to and rituals to and sacrifices to. And I think it's worth an exploration. I think it's important that we are always diligent and sober-minded in trying to understand what God would want from us, because the Bible says to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. So it's a never-ending journey of seeking to become not only redeemed on the inside, which is God's work, but redeemed on the outside, which is your partnership with God in your behavior, in your mindset, in the way you act, the way you respond to stimulus, to difficulty, to challenges, to evil, to darkness, and to goodness. And so one of the many, many lessons in this exploration, and it is an important one, like I said, I'm glad to be experiencing it because it forces me to think more clearly about what is true and not to take traditions for granted. Is there value here, or is there something compromised that I didn't notice before? One thing for sure is the idea of your heart. What does your heart focus on? What is it desiring? In other words, if you worship something, you can do it unaware. Nothing is more obvious than Christmas, where you begin to care about the presents and care about the decorations and really care about this tradition and putting together this beautiful feast and making sure you can afford to buy things for your kids or for others. And unaware becomes worship. A worship of this season, of this time, of this holiday, and its traditions, what is expected of you, to participate in it. And you'd make casual compromises. You go to Santa and you do Santa, which is a disconnect from what is our purpose. You know, we all see it as Christians and say, oh, it's over-commercialized, it's about Jesus. But then we go out and buy our stuff and put our kid in Santa photos. Hey, I did it as a kid. I loved it. It was fun to believe in Santa. But in retrospect, I would say I probably would do it differently now, because we don't put our efforts and our priorities on Christ at Christmas, even when we say we should. Where's your heart? Is it committed to Jesus? Is it committed to his birth? Is that the lion's share of your decorations? Santa and mistletoe, or nativity scene and Star of Bethlehem? So I think we do have to always be aware of what we say we believe, and where our heart is, that's who we actually are, and that will come out in our behavior. So think about that today. Where is my heart directed? What does it desire most? And do I act that way? Go to bradstine.com and join the Militia of the Mind, and I'll have your email, and I'll send you my newsletters and my ministry changes. Or join the Mighty 10,000 and help this ministry grow if you think it has value. This is God's Comic Brad Stine, and this is your Daily Brad. So, like I said, that's just something that I've been doing, and I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update on the whole podcast. Remember, you are my people. You are the originators of Brad Stine Has Issues, as far as the people that watch, the people that donated, the people that participated in making all these pieces come together. So I always use you as sounding boards, as guinea pigs, as scientific experiments, as petri dishes, as microscopic larvae. I use you guys like that. Wyatt, don't you think that's a good idea?
Guinea pigs? Yeah, absolutely.
But what about the
much better
microscopic
than using the
larvae?
audience as gerbils.
Right. So anyways, I want you guys to understand that I'm trying to find the ways, as I pray, that God has got a purpose for this podcast as well as everything else I do, that it's the most effective in inspiring and entertaining people and educating them, right? Inspire, entertain, educate. And so I'm thinking about, for 2025, trying to kind of consolidate this, have the first half between Wyatt and I about 45 minutes, yeah? And then we run the guest. And that will make it, 2 hours-ish, depending on how long the guest is. And so I want to probably do a little bit more specific spiritual moments where I write them up and then deliver them like a monologue, and then have a cultural moment that I'm speaking about, like the Brad Stine Has Issues original ones you may have seen where I talked about an issue. And I want to sort of have those as part of this every week. So I'm going to have to do a little bit more work as far as writing things up. So much of this has always been spontaneous. And my hope is that it keeps people informed, and it might even draw more people, because when Wyatt and I joke around, it's fun. And there are a lot of podcasts, especially comic podcasts, where people just talk to each other and they joke around. They have some fun. They tell some stories. And I guess some of those are successful depending on how famous the comic is. And then the other ones are interviews, or they are politically in nature, like they're referencing somebody that they saw, and then they talk and they comment. That's a big one. Commentary on somebody doing something or saying something. So I'm thinking that might be something I could add to this podcast, so that there's kind of the best of both worlds, a hybrid of what works in so many different formats of podcasts. And I kind of have a little piece of all of those puzzles, and it's consistent. We know exactly what you're getting. You know exactly about how long this half is going to go, and then off we go to the guests. And again, I'm just hoping to get a much more even much wider eclectic group of interviews. And I got some great ones coming. There's about 6 or 7 already in the can that will be coming here soon. And so, and then there's a few others that I've kind of got a little, what do you call it? I've got my fishing line out there trying to snag them and see if they'll come in. So I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about what we can do, what we might be able to do. And the most important thing is that I hope is that there's value to this thing. If it educates, if it entertains, and if it informs, then I guess it has value. But again, we need to get subscribers. We need to get Facebook likes and shares. We need to be able to leverage my Facebook page more for the podcast, which we haven't been able to do because the algorithms got messed up when I started doing Daily Brads live on Facebook. It really messed up our algorithms and the ability to try to monetize it. And let me explain something to you guys. I get it. Monetization is a pain in the neck because you're trying to watch it and a stupid commercial comes on. I'm with you. I watch things. Commercial comes on. I'm waiting to skip. I get it. But for those who are not being paid to do these things, and yet they're here every week and making time to do these things and write these things up and create these things and spend the money to buy all the stuff and not have any income coming, it's one way of trying to see if we can make that happen. So that's what I'm going to try to shoot for. I'm praying about God, help me, give me wisdom, and let me make this valuable. And I hope it's successful, especially as a Christian podcast that is unique and different and stands out, and that secular people and non-believers want to watch. Then I really feel like, there's some value to that. But I will be honest, am more focused on helping believers become disciples. That's really the purpose of what Jesus said when he left. He said, hey, go into the world, make disciples, not Christians, disciples. So that's what we're shooting for. And it brings up this idea of Christmas because I just did that rant. Wyatt, every year, especially Christians, they get talking and they always bring up this one idea. Hey, Christmas is too commercialized. Do you think Christmas is too commercialized, Wyatt?
We had, when I was looking at Lowe's, we had our Christmas decorations shipped to our store, ready to take out, in July. So yes, I would say at this point, the holiday might be a teensy more commercialized than I would care to admit.
So did they have you put it out that early, or
no, they waited until September to do that.
Okay, and out come the Christmas decorations.
Yes.
Now that was in competition with the 10-foot freak skeleton, scary zombie junk you guys were selling.
They had about a quarter of the space devoted to holiday stuff for Halloween.
Yeah.
In October.
Okay.
The month of Halloween.
Okay.
The rest was Christmas.
Okay. So you had more Christmas stuff than Halloween stuff out?
We had more Christmas stuff than Halloween stuff. For every single day, we had Halloween stuff out.
Okay.
Even literal Halloween itself, the day.
So when you think of Christmas being commercialized, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to be
It means companies use it as an excuse to push selling stuff to people.
Okay. So
to the point where it's ludicrous.
Okay. So if that's true, and I agree with you 100%, part of what I wonder is, when is it participating? Because there's something amazing about Christmas in that obviously it's about the birth of Christ. That's the purpose of the whole thing. The lights are beautiful. There's really no other holiday where people do that to their homes and make these beautiful lights. Giving gifts to people is a beautiful thing. Thanksgiving and Christmas is a great time where people will give food to people who need food. That's a beautiful thing. So there is something amazing. I mean, the whole concept of Christmas is so crazy. God, real God, not pretend, not Thor, not mythology, not Zeus, the actual God who created everything, becomes a human, his creation. He becomes his own creation, and then lets his own creation kill him, kill God, so he can come back and restore his creation that screwed up in the first place, that he had nothing to do with. It's such an amazing story. And so it needs to be told, and it should be told. And I agree, it's too commercialized. We get hung up, even the Christians who want to give gifts, which is a beautiful thing. The whole purpose is give to somebody else instead of getting something for yourself. So the idea of gift giving, I think, is certainly what's wrong with that. It's a beautiful thing. And if we can all learn to be more giving of ourselves, and especially Christians, part of being a believer is to learn, especially if you're trying to be a disciple, to give away things that are yours. That if this is yours or some money is yours and you give some away. We had Joylyn Masarosa on a while ago, who was sued by the Biden administration, if you remember that, when they were following the bus, right? Do you remember that, Joylyn Masaros? Yeah. So when I was performing a comedy and Constitution show with Rick Green, a guy came up to me and he said, man, I love what you guys are doing. I want to give to your ministry. He gave me $500 in cash. He said, I want to give this to you. I love what you're doing. I want you to keep it up. This is a couple of years ago. And I'm like, oh my God, this is great. I can use this $500. This is amazing. Put it in my pocket. Thank you, guy. I meet Joylyn for the first time. She tells me her story. We are being sued by the Biden administration, and they are trying to say that we tried to do voter suppression and that we endangered people's. It was complete lawfare. It was complete weaponization of the legal system against these fellow Americans. And she said, you know, we're just doing a GiveSend GoFundMe page because we don't have the money. We're just regular citizens to fight it. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this guy just gave me $500. I can use $500, but you know what? They could use it more. And I had a moral dilemma. Do I just keep this and say, well, here? And I just felt this sense of give it away. You didn't expect this money. You didn't expect $500 given to you. Give it to them. They're going, and I did. I took this money. I said, I'm going to do something for you. This guy just gave this to me in my ministry. I'm going to pass it on to you. I only ask one thing. You fight. You fight this thing. I will give it to you if you promise that you guys are going to take this to court. And as we found out later, they won. They did it. And she said one of the things she remembered was I said to her, you know, if we're going to give you money, I want you to fight. And she said, so we took that seriously, and we did. And so, and obviously they got a lot more than just my $500. But the point was, I didn't really want to give that away, Wyatt. I wanted to keep the $500 cash. It's like, this is amazing. But I knew that when I have this sense of wanting to hold on to hang on to, that's a prompting of God saying, will you release this? Will you release this to somebody else? Will you give it to somebody that needs more, somebody that needs it even more than you? Will you do that? Will you get used to sacrificing for somebody else? Will you get used to hearing God and just doing it even when it feels like, no, I want this. I deserve this. It was given to me. Will you get used to the habit of passing it on? Because if you do, you're learning, A, to hear God's language when he's speaking to your spirit, B, to obey it, and C, to allow God to work however he wants to through people. That's how he does it, through humans, to assist each other as the body trying to fight the good fight. And so I think that to give is a beautiful thing. It's a Christ thing. It's the early Christians sold everything and gave to each other so they could start this ability to tell the story of Jesus to the world. So it's very much our nature to give away to others who can't repay us, by the way, never going to get it back. So it's a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And I don't want to lose this idea of giving during Christmas, but the idea of commercialization. And that's what I talked about in my Daily Bread. Where is your heart? Where is your heart? Is your heart all about, I have to have the perfect house and have the most beautiful decorations and go out of my way to have better stuff than my family, and always and get stressed about buying gifts for people and getting stressed about preparing the meal, and it starts to cause you distress and anxiety and anger and frustration and short-temperedness. If that's happening, I would say to you, you are not using the season for what it's for, and that is to learn about giving and loving and being gentle and peacemaker. But in fact, you are a worshiper of the traditions, that you are idolizing the traditions instead of worshiping and illuminating Christ. And it's time for us to not talk about the commercialization of it, but in fact to do it. I think if I were, when you were growing up, Wyatt, we would do Santa. I thought it was fun. You got up, oh look, Santa ate our cookies, he drank them. I thought that was fun. I had it when I was growing up. I never thought it kept me from being a Christian. But I think in retrospect, I feel like in the end, I don't know that I do that anymore. I think that it did take away what should have been space for Jesus to be spoken.
I mean, two things I'll say. Number one, I'm 28. I certainly hope you wouldn't do Santa again.
Okay.
I'm a bit old for that.
All right.
Number two, I think Santa does have a special place, because I honestly couldn't take Jesus climbing down my chimney with presents seriously. I'm just saying.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
Like, Santa's there for the whole presents and stuff. Jesus is there for the everything else.
Okay. And I'm sure we probably would say something like Santa is Jesus's helper. Who knows? The point is, he's a mystical, magical being that isn't real. And yet we
No.
believe that Jesus is a mystical human
Yes.
God, man,
Who
who is
wasn't
real.
born on the 25th of December.
Exactly.
So, you know, I feel like, I don't know, it's a weird one because on the one hand, we are celebrating the birth of Jesus, even if he wasn't born there.
Yeah.
So I honestly, for me, it goes both ways because like I can totally see like, you know, this is his day, so like give him it, but it's also not his day. So like,
Yeah. No.
so like, what do we do?
Yeah. Like I
Like, what
said,
do we do?
I can't honestly say that I was harmed by believing.
Yeah, I don't
in
think there's anything
Santa.
inherently wrong with the whole Santa
But
thing.
you're lying about it. You're lying to your kids and saying the sky's coming. That's not, and it's a magical guy.
Yeah, and you're also lying to your kids that the TV doesn't work after 10 p.m. So, you know, sometimes lying's part of being a parent, you know?
Yeah, maybe.
I'm just saying. I have experience in that field.
Well, like I said, I'm torn because it was a fun experience. But I think that if I'm going to talk about the commercialization of Christmas and complaining about it and feeling like the truth of what Christmas represents is lost oftentimes in all of the tinsel and lights and Santas and stockings and everything else, and it had a beautiful tradition, but I feel like maybe I would have done it differently. Maybe you can still give gifts, but it's coming from us. It's coming from your parents. It's coming from people that love you. It's coming from people that know what you want and what you need and that they want to give it to you so that it teaches you to give to others. I'm just saying, you can't complain about commercialization of Christmas and then continue in it and not make adjustments. And I think that's the key, son, is that there's adjustments that need to be made. I am telling you full blown, with this election, this is not a time to, I said this before when it first happened, it's not a time to celebrate that we have a guy that supposedly is going to begin to gut the deep state and the dark, corrupt institutions and try to bring back America first and truth and justice and just the Constitution. That's what we believe he was running on and said he was going to do. And if he does, it would be amazing. It would be amazing. There's so much that needs to be done. I hope that justice is served. I hope if people did corrupt, evil things, if they're prosecuted. And if they're guilty, I hope they go to jail. Otherwise, what's the point of having a civilization if there's no justice? That isn't even what God would do. He judges people, and there is justice. So I hope that this is maybe where we're going, but it's a time for the church. I've said it before. I'll probably continue to say it for 4 years. To get on its knees, thank God for his grace, for his moment of, I don't know, giving us a pass, some grace, some grace, and a reprieve, like Carol Swain said, and that we continue now to serve Christ and speak the historic truth of Christianity in the moral realm, unapologetically, deeply committed to that which is true about our faith. And come hell or high water, this is our purpose as a church, is to tell people the rules so they know how to know God, be saved, to spend eternity with him, but also to honor him while we're on this earth, because he started us all on earth. So, speaking of earth, during that Genesis experience when he created humans and he created animals and fruit and suns and moons and stars, he created horses. So this particular person that we are about to interview is somebody that actually there's a connection to. If you remember Ashlee Bond, she was the producer of I Can Only Imagine, and she talked about producing films and faith-based films. A wonderful woman. Just love her to death. And she said, hey, I can help you find some guests. And the first person she recommended was Ashlee Bond. If it sounds familiar, it's because it's her daughter, who also happens to be an Olympian, who also happens to be an Olympian horse rider, who also did that for Israel. And she's an American. Sound odd, sound interesting, sound confusing. And if you're into horses, you might find this even more fascinating. I didn't know much about them. I'm not a big animal guy, but I found her fascinating, wonderful, sweet, kind, and has a great story to tell. And she is, in fact, a committed, unapologetic Christ follower. So, as we head into December, begin to enjoy this Christmas season, but make sure it's Christ centered. And we will continue to give you the gift of amazing people we talk to on Brad Stine Has Issues. So, enjoy yourself with God's comic Brad Stine, an equestrian Olympian, second Olympian we've ever had. John Stockton was on the dream team. Enjoy her, Ashlee Bond. Please welcome to Brad Stine Has Issues, Ashlee Bond. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I am good, good, good. It is so wonderful to see you. I did a little quick, I always am concerned about finding out anything about anybody on Wikipedia, because who knows what they're throwing out in that crazy
Yeah.
train wreck of a information platform. But it was funny because when I pulled it up, actually, I didn't obviously know you. I knew your mom for many years. And boy, I looked at some photos and I'm like, oh my goodness, does she look like her mom? Holy smoke.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Well, you do. And you kind of sound like her too.
Yeah, that too.
So you've got, and listen, nothing to be ashamed of. She's quite a juggernaut, your mom is. But she told me the first person I want you to talk to is my daughter. And of course, any mom should be proud of their child. I think you have a child, so we're always proud of our kids, and we want the best for them, and we hope they will succeed in whatever they're interested in. But you ended up in a very odd profession. I guess it's your profession, or at least
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's my profession.
Yeah, I didn't know, since you were in the Olympics, I didn't know how you were allowed or not allowed to be paid. I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
Well, let's just start there. So you are what do you call it? Equestrian?
Show jumper. But yeah,
Show jumper. You're a show jumper. Okay. So that's certainly an interesting form of the many ways that humans interact with horses.
Yeah.
Fun to watch. I guess it's a lot more dangerous than people realize. All we have to do is think about Christopher Reeve, and we realize what can happen to people in that profession of yours. Tell us a quick update about who you are, where you're from, just so we know who we're talking to, and then how you ended up getting into this odd show jumping career that has taken you to the Olympics.
Yeah, so my name's Ashlee Bond. I'm 39 years old. I have gone to 2 Olympic Games. My first was in Tokyo. I was 11th individually. And then I went to Paris, and we were 9th as a team, which was huge because I actually switched to represent Israel on my 33rd birthday back in 2018. So I competed for the US for many years, did 4 World Cup Finals, and just a lot of Nations Cup teams, which are the highest level of our sport. But team events, because normally we're an individual sport unless we're at the Olympics or the World Equestrian Games, things like that. So I decided to make the change for my faith and my family, and I just felt God's calling on my life, that's where I needed to be. So I was on the very first team, equestrian team for Israel ever in the history.
The first one that had ever been assembled, the first one that ever made it.
No, the first one that had ever been assembled to go to the Olympics. The first woman to compete, and I ended up 11th individually. I was actually the highest placed American as well, so that was cool. And then my team didn't have a great showing, unfortunately, but we were praying that the next time around the team would have a great success, and we ended up into the final, which was very unexpected. There was 20 something teams that competed. Us being such a young nation in show jumping, where these other countries have been competing for over 100+ years, The fact that we made it to the final in the top 9 was really impressive. So goal accomplished for that. And now hopefully in LA, we can have a great individual result and an even better team result. So
Well,
snippet.
but I mean, it's short, but there's so many pieces of this puzzle that I want to unfold because it's so interesting. And I definitely want to dive into the specifics of your sport because, I'm sure most people just don't understand it. It's not a, it's not a super
Popular
worldwide
right now.
you watch sport. It's probably worldwide popular, but again, it's kind of like opera. These are the best singers in the world, but there's only a certain amount of people that go to watch. It's just the way
Yeah.
it is. And for some reason, it has its own parameters as to who's interested in that. And I would guess on one hand, it has to do with the cost. I mean, it's got to be really, really expensive to
Very
get into that
expensive.
sport. You got to have at least a horse, which ain't cheap. And
No.
they can't just be any old horse. I'm sure it has to be a horse that's either trained or they're a specific breed that can do what it does. I don't know. Well, you tell
Yeah.
me, but it can't be cheap. I mean, what does it cost to run one horse for a year
Ooh.
and jump it? What would be a guesstimate cost of that?
Uh, it's gotta be at least 150,000 if you're doing it. And that's maybe on the low side. I'm also competing at the top, like in all the 5-star competitions. Those run for one horse. Your first horse to compete in a 5-star is 5,000 for the week.
Now,
Um,
is that sort of an entry fee or is it also
Entry, yeah, entry and stall and like your showing costs. That
okay?
doesn't include your hotels, your groom's hotels, your travel costs to get there. Fortunately, we have our own truck and trailer, so we do our own hauling, but people are usually hiring haulers and they charge $1.50 at least a mile. And you're traveling, thousands of miles to all these places. It's extremely expensive, but fortunately, we have a lot of prize money. So usually I, can pay my way with prize money winnings throughout the year. Then I have clients, and then you buy and sell horses, and so that's kind of how you can
And I'm
keep it
guessing
going.
sponsors
Yeah, not so much sponsors in like how you would see it in basketball, unfortunately.
or
Um,
like I'm thinking like NASCAR or something where
yeah, we have sponsors, but they're not really paying a lot of money. So it's more of like product and some will pay but again, it's very minimal amounts because our sport is so expensive. And it just doesn't have the reach that baseball and soccer and football and all of these other sports have in the US. In Europe, it's a lot more televised and it's a lot, you get a lot more atmosphere and fans. When I've competed in Aachen, Germany, there were 50,000 people in the stands. So it's a different sport there compared to being here in the States.
well, and probably a lot more fun for you because the hope
Yeah,
to have a bunch of people
it's
cheering
great.
for you or whatever, or going ooh, or whatever they do when things happen
Yeah.
that are amazing, has got to be adrenaline for
Oh yeah.
anyone. So, and maybe you just feel more respected. Maybe I mean, if
Yeah.
people are in the stands, if they're not, I mean, it feels like they don't care. Or I guess this is a big deal. So it really depends on the culture.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, for me, it gives like, gravitas when you're like walking into a 50,000 seat stadium and it's full. It's like the contrast between my first Olympics experience and my second. The first one was during COVID, and there was literally just fellow riders and trainers and family in the stands. Nobody was there. And then at this games, it was completely full. It was packed and it was amazing, the energy. And I love that energy. I feed
Yeah.
off of it. So definitely when you can get a big crowd, like here, I live in Wellington, Florida. When they do Saturday Night Lights, they get 6, 7, 8,000 people and it's completely packed and it's really fun. So that's always enjoyable.
So this is something that is in your area that is show jumping regularly. So that
Yeah.
community has gotten used to this and become fans of this sport.
Oh yeah, like here in Wellington, it's the for the winter, it's the biggest show jumping venue in the world during the
Oh,
winter. So you have a lot of Europeans come and people from all over are basing here and competing here, and that was part of the reason why I moved here, moved with my family here 4 or 5 years ago, because then I can just go out my back door 5 minutes and be, at the horse show and competing, and come home and in between, rides and stuff like that. So, but it's a big deal here. We have, I think there's over like 8 million, 9 million in prize money over the 12-week period.
Wow. So where does the money come from? The prize money?
They raise, like, there's sponsors.
Okay.
I mean, we do have like big sponsors that sponsor classes, Merrill Lynch, and I think there was one that was, because we had an F1 car at one of the events. There's good big sponsors. Rolex is one of them. Longines is another. So yeah, it does.
So again, it's the much more sophisticated up brands
here, yeah. And,
well, no, I mean, but that just says something about how they perceive the sport. And horses have always had this very prestigious place in humans' interaction, like horse racing, of course, is what we always think of as, the Churchill Downs or whatever, if you're looking at the sprint horses and whatnot. If you're looking at show jumping, like you said. And then there's also barrel racers I've seen, and people that will use their horses to, like rodeos, where they're trying to capture a calf and throw. So it's just this real interesting synergy between a horse and a human that is very old, very old. I mean, we think of that as the native Indians who used horses to survive, but that was brought over by the Spanish. So we're talking about people that domesticated horses for hundreds and hundreds, who knows how, thousands of years, who knows, and used them as a way to get around. So let's find out a little bit about horses. I don't know anything about them. I've ridden them. I've ridden them on, just like most people, you take a horseback ride, whatever. And, it looks easier than it is.
Yes.
I think when you see people on horses, it seems very smooth and very coordinated. Yeah. And then you get on a horse and you go, I kind of don't know what I'm doing, and they don't really do exactly what I say. And I have a sense that horses know when somebody gets on them that doesn't know what they're doing, they probably don't like it. It's like, look, if you're going to make me walk around with you, I want you to at least know what you're doing. So talk to me about your sense of what a horse is. In other words, what is it about a horse that you find so compelling, interesting, beautiful? Sell me on why I should care more about horses than I do.
Well, it talks about them in the Bible and how the Lord's going to come back riding, a white horse. So I've always felt connection to, my faith, that being a Christian, and my riding. So that's a big calling, I think, and it's funny, people love dogs. And honestly, our horses are very similar to just really giant dogs. They're very affectionate. They can also be very challenging and moody and opinionated. They're huge. So even the small ones are big, compared to what people think an animal should probably be, that you're, laying on and hugging on and all these things. They're dangerous. So you have to kind of find this balance of mutual respect between yourself and the animal in a way that's not aggressive, because people can obviously take it way too far, but there has to be boundaries. Just like with dogs, if you don't train a dog properly, it can be dangerous and it can bite and all these things. Horses are the same. They can kick, they can bite, they can rear, they can squash you. So you have to find this mutual balance, and they feel it. If you're trying to be too dominant with a horse, it's, it could end ugly. And I find, work really well with being like a gentle, firm hand. And they're just really soulful creatures, and being able to ride a horse and run at full speed, even if you're not jumping. I mean, for me, I get to fly. I jumped 3 horses this morning because we've got a competition next week. And I jumped 3 horses this morning, and I literally just get to fly all the time. And it's amazing and the most exhilarating experience. But if you're, not well-versed enough to jump, and you can just learn to ride, being able to run out in the countryside for hours with nature and it just grounds you, to be honest. There's this peacefulness about riding and being one with the horse. And It's really spiritual.
Hmm.
I guess that's the best way I can explain it. I feel more at home on the back of a horse than I would say anywhere. It's part of my being. It's part of who I
Well,
am.
I just find that, interesting because I didn't grow up with a pet. I didn't, I don't know if that they were anti-pet. I didn't have one. So I never really thought much about them. And I remember when my wife was like, well, I would like to have a dog for the kids. And I was honestly, I'm like going, I don't want it. It's like why am I paying money? If it gets
Expensive.
sick, I'm paying for this. Like I got to pay for money for my own kids, but now I'm paying for a dog that I chose to bring in here. And then it's peeing on my carpet and ruining it. And then it's tearing stuff up. And then it's only going to live a certain amount of time. And then when it dies, my kids have to deal with its dead.
Yeah.
And it just, I literally, and I'm feeding it. Oh, and then I want to go on vacation. Now you got to find a place to board your dog or somebody's got to come.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I don't get it. I don't understand what the upside here is. And especially when they're brand new, puppies, they tear crap up and you're like, it's like I paid for a vandal to come into my house
Did.
because this doesn't make any sense to me. And that, well, he's just a puppy. I know, but he shouldn't have been in the house. That's why
Yeah.
they're dogs. They belong out with the coyotes and their other, kin.
Yeah.
So my point is this, though. People that love animals love them. I mean, they've really, but I do believe, and I'm not trying to get off in a philosophical element, but I am interested because you have to be so in tune to an animal. You do
Mhm.
specifically because it's more than just it's my pet or I don't want him to go ruin the neighbor's flower bushes. They can kill people.
Yeah.
They can get out of control. They're too there's too much at stake to not know exactly what you're doing with this animal because they're much stronger and more dangerous than we are if they chose to go sideways.
Exactly.
So
You have to be very intuitive.
yeah.
I actually think, honestly, because my daughter's going to be 8 years old on Thursday. And I put her on a horse when she was 3 months old, and she's been riding since she was really little. I think riding and having that kind of responsibility and connection, it is so beneficial for you as an adult and as a human to grow up. I mean, I was so much more advanced and like mature for my age when I was young because I had so much responsibility I mean, I was competing by the time I was 6. I was national champion by the time I was 10, 5 times over. And you have this sense of self. And I find that these days people have no sense of self, and they are so lost. And I find that doing the horses and, riding and competing, it just gives you this purpose and this like feeling of, I know who I am and I'm a strong, independent woman, and nobody can shake that. And it gives you this self-worth that's so not around much today, I find. So you can see it in my daughter already, like she's very self-confident, and she knows she's kind of a baller because she can go out there and jump around and run around on her pony, and it just gives her this strength and this warrior woman fight in her, which is, I think, more women need.
So there's got to be a balance then that maybe you can explain to us because on one hand you are controlling the horse because you have to make it do a specific set of
Yeah.
motions. I mean, you have to go to this gate and to that. I don't even know the terminology, so forgive me
Yeah.
if I say the wrong thing.
No,
But I got
you're
to jump that fence and I got
gotta
to
jump
jump
that.
that thing and I
Yeah,
got to jump
it's a
this fake.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's a very specific order that it has to be done in. It has to be done, and maybe you want it to speed up because I guess it's about who does it fastest and who
Yeah.
doesn't clip the back,
Yeah. Who doesn't knock the fences over
fence
and
over. So
finish
there's a lot that
fastest? Yeah.
you and only you understand as a human
Yes.
and can control. But by the same token, of course, I'm sure that the horse, to a certain degree, over time gets used to this and understands
Yeah.
this is
But
what's going on.
but the course is always different. So the you have to have this partnership, which
Yeah.
is really like my horse I took to the Olympics, I've had since he was 6 years old. He's 13. So we know each other so well. By the time we went to the first Olympics, even though he was 10, we'd been together for 4 years and knew each other backwards and forwards. makes a huge difference in our sport. If you have a partnership, you form these bonds and these partnerships, and they trust you and you trust them. Like, you feel it. Like, it's a really, that's why I said it's spiritual, because it's a
Yeah.
really
Well,
like Avatar,
mm,
when you're like that, where they like feel that connection to the whatever tree, or it's
yeah, yeah. Well, but
yeah.
I guess what I was curious about was there has to be a balance between you controlling exactly what you need accomplished, but also allowing the horse to kind of feel like it can do its own thing and not feel constrained. I mean, for it to jump properly, I'm guessing it has to feel very loose to be able to, not, hey, I can't jump, you got me too close. I don't know how it works. Again, I'm,
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. You find distances to the fence.
yeah.
You have like a really small margin of error to get the horse's front feet perfectly to the base of the jump. And people have gifts for seeing distances.
Yeah.
So, like, you can see distances 9 strides, 10 strides away, and make those minor adjustments. Oh, speed up, put your leg on, slow down a little bit, like close the stride, open the stride, keep the stride the same, like all these little micro adjustments to make sure that they have the best takeoff spot to clear the fence the best. And
But
then angles and all the things.
does there come a time in the midst of this ride that you almost feel like the horse is taking over? Like, but I mean in a good way. Like, he kind of is, he's in his groove. I'm just going to sit back and let him do this because he's nailing this thing. Or are
Yeah.
you always kind of the one that has to make it all happen?
Well, no, I mean, it depends. Like, if the horse is young, then of course you're managing it a lot more. They don't have the experience. But my horse Donatello, who I've had forever, like, he knows the job enough to where I can guide him and kind of allow him to do his thing and stay out of his way. Like, a lot of it is staying out of his way so that he can perform his best. But then obviously he doesn't know the course plan, so he doesn't, like, you still have to navigate that. You still have to find the distance correctly and all of those things. But yeah, I mean, it depends on the horse. Some horses can also measure distances, which is really cool. For someone like more professional riders don't really like that, because then the horse is thinking for itself out there and making the decisions, whereas what you're doing more. But for an amateur who makes mistakes, it's really nice to have a horse that can say, oh, this is going to be too long, and they measure in at a stride, or they move up to it because they see that they're too far away. You have horses like that, and they are very expensive.
Because somebody else trained them sell them to somebody that is saying, we've already kind of done the work for you. So you're paying for the breaking in and the training period of this
Yes and
particular.
no. It's just like any professional athlete. Like, if you watch basketball, some are just more talented than others. Like, they're just gifted.
Okay.
And with horses, some are, like, most of them that are at the top sport, not all, but most of them were born to bred, had very famous or top bloodlines, parents and grandparents, and they come out of the womb and they are freaks. Like, they jump amazing and their brains are amazing. And like, I have a few of them. I'm very lucky. Those horses are usually more for professionals. The ones that really don't want to hit the jumps, we call that careful. So if you make mistakes at the distance and the horse then hits a jump really hard, it'll start stopping if it's one of those really careful horses. So you need someone who's very accurate, who finds the jumps, doesn't make mistakes at the distance for the jump.
How do you signal to the horse? Is it just your heels or whatever? Jump. I mean, how do you kind of get there and say jump? Or do they kind of know, I got to
Yeah,
jump or I'm going to run into
I
this?
mean, yeah, like, you start, obviously, like, I've broken, like, we call it breaking horses when you start them yourself. So I've bred a lot of horses and started them myself with my dad, and they're jumping horses. They're bred to jump. So you get to a pole on the ground and they want to get away from it. So a lot of them will stop. You have to encourage them, like, nicely, you're okay. And then they jump. They naturally jump. So it's just like a dog. If you were to run a dog that's bred to jump, or a Malinois or something like that, like, they just jump. You have to teach them where to put their feet, because a lot of times they'll start jumping and then they'll try to run you through the jump, like, their momentum. They don't know how to stay on the hind quarters and, like, keep the balance. You want the balance very light on the front feet. You want most of the balance, so you think like this way, and the butt has all the power. And then you want them, like, quite light in your hand, with all the power on the hind end, light on the front, and then, you know, so when you jump, like they rock back into you and not jump kind of like an airplane. You don't want that. So it's just, yeah, it just takes time. Like we start to jumping them at like 4 or 5, and then by the time they're 8 and 9, they're starting to jump. If they're going to be like for the big level for the Olympics and stuff like that, they'll start doing bigger classes, meter 50s and stuff as an 8-year-old. And then, you know, by 9 jumping like the big 5-star Grand Prix, we call them.
Does the genetics always pan out? In other words, you know, I've seen them like with like, I don't know, Secretariat, something like that. And you could sell, how does it work? Was Secretariat a girl or a guy?
No, he was a stallion.
He's down.
So
Okay.
he was,
So you can
yeah,
sell that. So anyways, you got a
yeah, breeding
Secretariat.
stallion, and
You can
then
sell their sperm
yeah,
for
the
like
penis, yeah.
millions of dollars
Well,
because
I
they're
think
going
it was like
to.
100. I think it was a couple 100,000 for breeding.
Okay. So,
Yeah,
but you're just okay. So my point is though, and I get it. You're dealing
yeah,
with one, and that's one of the few horses names that, you
yes,
know that everybody knows Secretariat. But
yeah.
my point is, if you think about it though, how many of them go on to win the Kentucky Derby?
Yeah, not many.
Really? How many really go on and become Triple Crown winner? In other words, is it a demonstrably apparent proof of concept that the lineage of this jumping horse or this fast horse automatically will provide me somebody at least close to, or at least in upper categories of proficiency? Because I don't see that panning out all the time. So I
No,
think you're
it
just
doesn't
kind of
matter.
rolling the dice, thinking, well, I don't know what I'm going to get anyways, but I'd rather start with something I know was good,
Yeah,
and maybe it gives me a head start. But you know, how many times does it really, do we see a lineage of show jumping horses that constantly are the winners every time from the same I mean, does that
yeah.
really work like that?
Yes and no. There's been horses that were, you know, found at the I think Snowman was found at Slaughter and like bought for like $50, and he ended up being like a top show jumping horse. There are those rare situations, like an off the track race, like ex racehorse turned. There was a horse named Eros with Ann Krasinski, and it turned out to be an amazing horse at the top level, and I believe it was an ex racehorse or a thoroughbred with not great bloodlines. So there are, my horse actually that went to the Olympics, his mother line didn't jump big jumps. Like she jumped very small with amateurs, but his father is a well-known stallion called Diorado, and he does produce top show jumpers. So there are like sires, we call them, but the mare contributes about 60 to 70% of the foal. So if you start with a really exceptional mare and breed to a really exceptional stallion, your likelihood of getting a good horse is much higher than if you were to just take a random horse without those bloodlines, of course. So yeah, I mean, breeding it's like a science. I'm not so well versed in it, but
Yeah, no, I was just curious because like I said, I haven't always seen like Secretariat 2, Secretariat 3 said, look, they keep
yeah,
going. It's like, well, I don't know that it always works like that. So again,
no,
you're still taking a risk. So you take a horse like yours, Donatello, and suddenly you become a winner, and just like we're world champions, and you know whatever the particular part that you're participating in, you win, or and so forth. So it gets a good. You obviously have a great reputation as the winner, but also your horse suddenly is
oh
given
yeah,
a reputation too. Like, wow.
yeah, the
So
horses
now
become
does that become a potential one day putting him out to pasture, but you can, his lineage, his seed can be sold now? Does that now become a
no,
value to you in the
he's a
future?
gelding, unfortunately. So
Oh,
stallions.
I
So
see.
it's just like a dog when you neuter them.
I get you.
So he was gelded. Most are gelded. I don't,
I
there
see.
aren't so many stallions because they can be very difficult, and you need to have people that know what they're doing. Handling
Okay,
stallions, they
okay,
can be
okay.
very dangerous because they've
So
got all that
again,
testosterone.
my ignorance makes me
Oh, that's
makes
okay.
me look like, that's like
No,
trying to milk a bull. I look like an
yeah,
idiot.
there is a huge business in stallions and breeding stallions. I mean, it's a big part of our industry.
And there
Uh,
are stallions that are, you say, are a little bit more challenging because I guess because of the testosterone, I guess
oh
is,
yeah, I
but
mean,
are there some
yeah.
world champion stallions that are like the greatest that ever was as well?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, there was a stallion called Hickstead, and he won the individual gold medal at the Olympics. I believe it was in Beijing with Eric Lamaze. But but his offspring didn't turn out very good. There's I think quite a few where they were exceptional stallions themselves, but their offspring just kind of fell flat, wasn't as good. And I think Secretariat is one of those where just everything that he produced wasn't great. But then I think the mothers, because that's also interesting, like mothers buy that sire. So that crossover, like it could be that the mother, once she has another baby, so when Secretariat's the grandsire, then it seems that it creates a better horse, you know.
I
So
see. Yeah.
and it's both sides, like it's very intricate. It's a whole science behind it. It's actually quite fascinating how it works.
So let's go a little bit, because there's a few other things I'm really interested in about your life, and I don't want to leave it out. But I just really kind of, frankly, I'm very selfish on my podcast. I just ask questions that are interesting to me and hope that people can hang on, because I'm
Well, you're doing great.
I'm interested in the people that I talk to, and I hope that people are interested in listening to our conversation. So a jockey is an athlete, but you could think to yourself, okay, but a jockey, you know, is about 5'2", weighs 102 pounds. He's kind of just hanging on, you know, like, come on, what are he's running and you're on him, and that's that.
Yeah.
So it's easy to discount, like, you're not really doing anything.
People think that all the time.
So the double-edged sword of your skill set, Ashlee, is that you're so good at it, and and anybody of your caliber are so good at it and have to be in such synchronicity with the horse to make it work. And it becomes so fluid observing. It feels like you're not doing anything,
which is
because that's what you trained to learn how to do after all these years, was make it feel like it's one motion. So clearly that takes work. But what is the athletic part of it to call you an athlete? You're an Olympic athlete, but all the work is happening. And again, I'm just making this as a metaphor. All the work is the guy that's actually jumping. You're not jumping.
Yeah.
You know, so tell me about what makes an athlete when they are on an animal.
So just think about you're sitting on a fence, or you're sitting on, like, you know, a makeshift horse, right? That's not moving. And you have a saddle on. Try just posting up and down. So you're pretty much doing squats, like, think about it. Up and down, up and down. Now do that and keep your legs still. So to keep your legs still while you're posting up and down on an animal, the muscles it takes, like, even if I don't ride for 2 weeks and I get on and ride, I'm sore. Like, my legs are killing me. Your core is killing you, because it takes so much core strength and to keep yourself stable. So we're up there, like, you watch people start riding and they're bouncing and their legs are like everything has to be so still, but yet not rigid. So you need fluidity in your elbows, you need fluidity in your wrists, but you need them straight. You need to hold the reins, and you're controlling a 1,200 to 1,500 pound animal with a bit in the mouth. So there's a pressure that you need to put from your leg to the hand, because if you only use hand, the horse just gets stronger or they get upset. You know, so you want your legs to be on them, but some horses are really, really sensitive. So you have to be able to, like, control your leg to where you're not moving it at all, or when you do move it, you know exactly where to put it. And then that's not jumping, that's not cantering. Cantering, you know, you'll see a lot of people that first start riding and they're like bouncing on the saddle. All of that is lower core strength to keep yourself light and soft in the saddle. So I always, you know, my husband was a professional soccer player, and he'll probably kill me for saying this, but I put him on a horse years ago. And I mean, he's got like crazy strong legs. He couldn't walk the horse in a straight line, you know, like it's so not what people think it is, because like you said, when you're watching people that have been doing this for so long, they make it look so effortless, just like you watch a guy driving, you know, a race car, a NASCAR, around in a circle. Like, I can do that, sure. Yeah, right. Like it looks like I can, but no, I definitely couldn't. Like, you think they're sitting in a car, how difficult, why is that an athlete? but then the heat and the stamina and all of these things that you don't realize until you're doing it are an issue. So
Yeah.
it's really, yeah, people definitely, I think it's funny anytime. Actually, I'm gonna sidebar. My teammate Daniel Blumen, who competed with me in Paris, I think he did a swap with one of the BMX. I don't know if it was BMX or she was an Olympian, I think from Colombia or somewhere, but they did a swap where he did her sport and she tried to ride. And it was apparently pretty interesting. So it's scary for people. Like, and the horse can take off. Like, I have my best horse, Donnie. When he's feeling himself, he takes the bit when you pick up the canter to the left. Sometimes he'll just take the bit and not want to turn and just run. And to stop takes a lot of strength. Skilled riders have been like, whoa, like.
Do you let other people ride your horse? I mean, is that like a cool thing to do, or is that like, no, we never let others on our, I don't know how that works.
I mean,
like if one of your friends came on, hey, can I ride Donatello? You'd say, sure, go ahead.
Not random people. Like, I don't let anyone ride him. I have let my daughter, he actually is very safe for the most part, unless you're cantering and he's fresh. But to walk and trot, I put her on when she was 6 and she was able to ride him on her own. Like, he's actually really good.
Fellow equestrians don't come in and say, hey, can I ride your house for a second? I want to try it.
No, but I have people that work for me. So like my groom's manager who ride, like they work my horses, like they help, if I have things to do or I'm out of town or whatever, like they ride as well. But no, not random, unless I need a favor, a friend, a fellow rider to like ride my horses if I can't get to it or something.
So this is keeping it in shape when you
yeah. Because it's all about, you think about us as like I say, football player or whatever, they need to be at their peak performing. They need to be at peak performance for games. It's the same with the horses. Like, I have to get them fit enough and not overfit and not work them too hard to where they get sore. I need them super, super fit, but then you have to kind of do cardio. My horses do the treadmill twice a day at an incline, 30 minutes each, and then they get ridden on top of that. Then you have to make a plan of, okay, they leave Sunday morning to go to the show next week. They start competing on Wednesday. I have a training class. Like, when do I need to jump them home? What days, and what days do I flat, and what days do I work them harder? Like, they have a whole schedule for fitness for themselves.
And do you know, like an upcoming tournament, do you know the layout of it so you can like mock that up in your field or whatever arena so that they can practice? No. So you don't know what you're going to get till you get there?
Yeah. Like the course you jump, okay, the jumps are always kind of similar. It's nothing really we haven't seen, unless you're going to the Olympics or the World Games. They build specific jumps. So all of those jumps will be things we've never seen. And the horses, like, you need a really brave, we call it brave when they don't look at things and get spooked. You need a really brave, self-assured horse for when you go to those championships, because everything is very different looking. But at these competitions, they use kind of the same jumps everywhere, and they just build the courses in different patterns.
So as a amateur, sort of watching, and I've watched it, everybody's seen it on clips of it or what, because it's interesting. What is the most difficult, most challenging of all the jumps or the whatever, I don't know what they call them. Are they called jumps or?
Jumps.
Okay. So, but I've seen somewhere it's like you're going over water a little bit, or maybe it's like a brick fence, like thick, wider than like just poles. So is there one that's like, oh God, it's the so-and-so. I mean, is there one that's the hardest, most challenging, dangerous of all the jumps?
Well, in show jumping, there's not really a more dangerous. If you're talking eventing where the jumps don't move, then yes, there's a lot of dangerous jumps. But in our sport, it really depends on the horse, because every horse, it's like us. Like, they have qualities or talents and other things that they're weaker at. Some are left-handed, some are right-handed. They're better to the left than the right, and vice versa. So it really just depends on what the course builder builds. A lot of times, certain course designers, how they have kind of a specific style. And there's a course designer named Alan Wade. He's one of the best in the world. And the way he builds is very good for my horse Donatello, because he always tends to build tight time alloweds and a lot of rideability. So you need to be able to open the horse's stride and close it very quickly and smooth. And my horse has a naturally smaller stride, so it makes us able to conquer his courses better, I would say, than a horse that's bigger.
Do they build the courses? Do they build the courses more for the challenge of the rider, or for the aesthetic viewing of the audience?
Both. Yeah, they like to make the jumps look pretty, obviously, and everything. But yeah, I mean, every course, there's multiple classes a day, and there's one big Grand Prix a week. And you'll kind of aim, that'll be the big money class, and you'll aim your horse to hopefully peak at that class.
How do they score it then? Let's say that you do a perfect run, and I'm guessing that just means you don't knock anything over. Is it just by time, whoever got there faster, or is there some kind of other quality they're watching for? They're like, hey, they tied, but that horse looked more beautiful when it jumped, and it didn't seem all clumsy, so I'm going to give it to him? Or is it strictly time and not knocking something over?
So there's, within show jumping, equestrian show jumping, there's 3 disciplines: hunters, jumpers, and equitation. So jumpers is what I do. Hunters is based on the horse, how pretty they look. They don't jump very big jumps. Equitation, they also don't jump very big jumps, and it's based on how pretty the rider looks. So, but jumpers is solely based on jumping the fences without knocking a rail over and being within the time allowed. So usually you have one round, which they have a time allowed. So say it's like 78 seconds. If you make it around the course without knocking a fence down within 78 seconds, you are then going on to the jump off. And the jump off will be all the people that equaled, had the same equivalent of faults, whether that be on 0, sometimes it's on 4 faults. Nobody jumps around clear. Then for the short course, it's a short version, and you go as fast as you can without knocking the rails over, and whoever's the fastest with the least amount of faults wins.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And which of those 2 courses are your favorite? The shorter course?
The jump off. I like going fast. Yeah.
So where do you rank? Where do you rank in the world of equestrian elite jumpers? Where are you at?
Well, right now I'm 113. I was in the top 50 for a while.
And how many are there? Like, I mean, out of how many?
Oh, like tens of thousands of people.
Okay. So if you're in 113.
Yeah, but that's not, my highest was 37 back in 2009. But the thing is like I did the Olympics, and then Donnie hasn't competed since, and I'm bringing young horses up. So I haven't really had the results that I normally have, to be honest, which is fine. It's what happens when you're developing horses.
Yeah.
I can't afford to go buy $1 million horses, so I have to develop them myself, which I actually enjoy more, to be honest.
So when you see the best jumper in the world, I don't know who it is. I guess you would know.
There's a few.
Let's say whoever is number 1 right now.
Yeah.
When you look at that jumper, and just be honest, do you go, well, no wonder. I mean, I can't do whatever this magical, element that they bring to that made them number 1. Is it strictly because they won more, or is there something about their skill set that allows them to be superior to everybody else?
No, I think the thing about our sport is the rankings they're based on points. So the more horses you have at the 5-star level, the more chance you're going to have to get points and get high up there. So I would say there's people that are not even in the rankings right now, like Richard Spooner, who was top 10 in the world. He's my mentor, and he was top 10 in the world for a long time. I mean, he's not even ranked right now because he's pretty much like half retired, but he's young still. He's like in his early 50s. But there's people that have been number 1 in the world that are 200, like farther down. It depends on the horses you have. So anyone really in the top I would say for sure in the top 200, could be one of the best, like are just as good
That's
as
what I was wondering. Yeah, I didn't know if there
first.
was, it's just night and day. It's like the difference between Michael Jordan and another guy is like,
Yeah,
it was
no,
like there was something else going on that we couldn't
no.
figure out. Okay.
There's a couple, but it's that are like really, really gifted. But yeah, it really has to do. You need that horse. You need, as good as you are, you need a horse that's that good. And it's so hard to find them.
So, well, you're making them, so God bless you.
Yeah.
Keep it up.
I have an 8-year-old that's really, really, really special. So
Oh,
we'll see.
nice. Well, we will keep abreast of what you got going. So your mom is, a producer of film and just an artist and just a sweetheart. I just love your mom so much, and we just are friends just because of the industry. Well, it's
Mhm.
not like we ever hung out or whatever, but we just have had a number of conversations and just to care about our faith and care about what the world is becoming, care about where we're going, care about as I'm a comic actor, so I'm a performance artist. So that's how I tell the story of whatever I'm telling, and hopefully it has some redemptive focus towards God in Christ as a Christian, Christ follower. And again, I was going just a quick cursory look at your bio, just so in case there was something I should know, and throw it out there. Try to keep it pretty organic, but it talked about your father, who's Jewish, and
Mhm.
I'm going, you know what? I don't know that I knew that Cindy's husband was Jewish because she's a Christian, and
Yeah,
he could be a messianic. I don't know
he is.
his
Yeah.
thing, but I'm like, if he's just Jewish, that's interesting. I did not know that. And so it doesn't matter. I'm just curious. So is he a messianic Jew, or is he just
Yeah.
he is?
Yeah. Yeah. He's a Messianic Jew.
Okay. So, and he was a show jumper himself.
Yeah. He's always ridden. That's how I started riding. He put me on a horse when I was 6 months old. But he did um uh cutting horses first. He was in the Western. He actually rode broncs and bulls when he was really young. And then he did cutting, and then he did polo. And then when he was 40, because that's what there was a show jumping barn, and that's where I started. He picked up show jumping. So he did that, but he was an actor for a long time. So
Okay.
show jumping was
And
just a hobby.
so he's from Israel?
Yeah, he was born and raised in Israel and Haifa, and he moved to the States when he was 12 with his mom.
Okay, and then always has been. So is he a dual citizen or?
Yeah, and that's how I got my citizenship.
So you're a writer, you are a champion with the U.S., or maybe that was individual. You decided to get into the Olympics. Now, did you ever do that with the U.S. team?
No, I was longlisted for the US team and also for the World Equestrian Games, but it's a different beast when you're doing it for the Olympics. There's a lot of other factors that come into play. So
I think the word you're avoiding is politics, but okay. Uh,
politics
uh,
everywhere for sure.
yeah,
But
bureaucracy,
yeah,
agendas. Yeah,
yeah,
no, no,
a
no.
little
You
bit.
don't have to. You do not have to explain to me
The fact that
what's
Richard,
actually at stake here. But okay, but join. But did you feel a kinship to Israel? In other words, you didn't just join them because it's like, hey, here's another place for me to go and jump. I love doing it. I'll do it for Brazil if they want me. I just love jumping. But you made a. I'm guessing, and I shouldn't because you're right here, so I'll ask you. Was there a spiritual component? Was there a sense of, you know what, I'm Jewish. I'm kind of half Jewish. This is my land too. I feel proud of this. I'd like to participate with my father's lineage.
yeah, my Safta, my dad's mom, she immigrated from Hungary when she was younger, fled World War II, and ended up in Israel, and then had my dad there. Met my grandfather in Italy, actually had my uncle there first, and then immigrated to Israel. So, and Israel was very close to her heart. And I mean, I grew up eating, Israeli food, and I definitely have the personality traits of an Israeli, the intensity, the strength, stuff like that, that makes Israelis, I think, fighters and strong people and survivors. So I always felt very connected in that respect. And then, yeah, just my, she was someone who was very, very close to me. She passed away when I was 14. Sorry, it gets emotional. But I felt like I'd felt this calling to do it actually for a few years before I made the switch. But my mom was very concerned for my safety, which is valid. Being an Israeli athlete and competing at the top level, you have a target on your back. So, but yeah, once the 2017 was when I made the official decision to do it, and then I just needed to go there and get my passport, because my father was born there, so I was able to just go and get my passport. So I did that when I was 33.
Do you see? I don't know how this works. I guess it'd be like biracial, or in this case, well, it's ethnic, but
Yeah.
but there's a spiritual component to it as well.
Yeah.
So I guess what I was trying to ask you was, do you feel Jewish?
Do I feel Jewish? I mean, I know I have Jewish blood in me. But no, my connection to Israel is because of Jesus. Like, and I know Jesus was Jewish. But I'm a Christ follower, like you said. I love that, because I don't believe in religion. I believe in Jesus.
Yeah.
People get all weird about religion, but that's not, I think people who follow Jesus, it's not about religion, it's about him, and his word, and doing what he expects of us. So I just felt like I had this purpose, and to represent the Jewish people. I love the Jewish people. I love the Jewish culture. I have family that's Jewish, obviously, and that live in Israel, and others that are Israeli that live, near my parents in LA. But yeah, I just feel a protectiveness of Israel and the people, because they're God's chosen people, and it's
Yeah.
God's land. That's so for me, I like to bring as much awareness to that, and hopefully get people to follow Jesus, and save as many people as we can.
In 2000, when was it? 18? I think so. Anyways, I did a documentary called Boycott This. It's kind of a takeoff on one of my comedy albums, which was called Tolerate This. Anyways, it's called Boycott This. And what it was a documentary about the BDS plaint, or the assessment, or the pejorative by a lot of the Middle Eastern countries, that they claim that Israel was apartheid, that it was colonialism, that it was, evil. And so there was this one particular I don't know if it's still gaining any steam, but it was called the BDS movement: boycott, divest, and sanction. It's the exact same technique that was used to end apartheid in South Africa, and it worked. And if you boycott them, so you're not, and you divest, you don't invest into this country, and you sanction them so they can't accomplish things. It hurts. They go, okay, uncle, what do you want me to do? Yeah, stop treating the black people like this. They're all equal. Oh, okay. And that was that. Well, obviously, this Palestinian-Israeli scenario is very different.
Yeah.
And it is not in any way, shape, or form apartheid at
No.
all. It couldn't be any different.
Different.
That the amount of access Palestinians have to working in Israel, to coming to and fro, to being safe, and oftentimes if they're interviewed, they prefer it.
Yeah,
They
they hold
prefer it
places in
to
government.
the West Bank. It's just freer. It's just they feel safer. So it's always the sort of the media. It's always sort of those with an agenda that stir the pot and make things look worse than they are. And of course, I was defending Israel, and I'm a Christ follower. But I was there. I was in Israel interviewing different people, and the things that they've accomplished. And here's what I was going to say: if you study Israel and Jews as a people, well, there's only about 14 million in the whole world. It's ridiculous how small a percentage of these people exist. You're looking at a state the size of New Jersey. I think they've have 120 Nobel Prize out of that tiny little place. If you look at the history of Jews, just that, the most historically documented persecuted people group in human history, and wherever they're thrown out, they land and then don't just survive.
They thrive. Yeah.
They do. My thinking is, okay, that's a proof of God. These people are ridiculous.
Mhm.
There's something about them. I actually was at, was thought like, do you have any regrets in your life? And I said, if I had any regrets, it'd only be two. One, that I wish I was left-handed because I think left-handed is cool.
Yeah.
And two, I wish I was Jewish.
Yeah.
Now, that's an odd thing to say. I mean, my last name's Stine, so people sometimes think I am, and I'm a
Yeah.
comic. So they think, well, you must be, and I'm German. I don't know. I admire these people. And I got to be honest with you. There's a lot of them that have done a lot of damage too.
Yeah,
So
for
they
sure.
make it hard. Some of the worst case scenarios, Marx and Freud's, and they were Jewish too. So, they're not perfect. The things that have come out of these people just tells me this is legitimately, when God said, these are my chosen people, he wasn't kidding. So I was just curious from a spiritual realm. And here you are, Christ follower. And of course, Jesus was the Messiah. He was a rabbi. He comes from their lineage. He comes from their history. He comes from their Torah. He comes from their prophets. I would think as a Jew, it would be a wonderful completion of everything I've believed all along. And of course, many don't. Do you find that puzzling, or have you tried to figure out why that seems to be the case?
I mean, it talks about it, they have scales over their eyes. I think it's just it makes me sad, I think there's some people that are open-minded to it, and then others that get very aggressive about it and just won't hear anything. So, you just pray for them and pray for God to soften their hearts and
But
should heal.
don't you think sometimes it's because they feel like historically the Christians are trying to eliminate their, like, destroy their faith or destroy their Judaism? So like you got to convert, and there was certainly horrible things done in the name of
Yeah, I mean,
Christianity. So I get
Christianity.
it. They're like, look, we're gun
Yeah.
shy about trusting any of you people because we
Yeah,
keep getting kicked out. But don't you think some of it is sort of a sense of, the track record is we don't really trust anybody. So
probably.
your Jesus is really just trying to do another way of purging Judaism from the earth. Does that?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
I'm I haven't really had that experience with the Jews that I know, but again, it's not like I've been in the middle of Israel preaching,
You're right.
uh, as a Christian. So, but I have seen videos of people doing that, and some some Israelis are open to hearing about Jesus, and others completely find it almost offensive.
So how were you treated by Israel or Israelis, being a Christian, but you're representing them? Did they just see it as, you're a gun for hire, you know, thank you for helping us? Or do you feel like you were embraced? I mean, you are part Jewish, so maybe that
Yeah,
helped, but
I both. I think in the beginning I felt as though I was a little bit alienated, not that anyone did or said anything really specific other than they would, call it the Jewish team, which I would kind of be like, it's not really the Jewish team because I'm here and not technically, I mean, I guess technically I'm part Jewish, but I am a Christian. Um, but
but they
I
would say that instead of the Israeli team,
yeah,
the Jewish team.
they would make like comments, not in a negative way, but just like, so it kind of made me feel a little ostracized at times, and I was a little bit gun shy to share my faith. But then in the last, I would say year or two, that's completely gone away, and I feel embraced, and that I can speak of about who I am and my faith and why I represent Israel and all of those things. So
Has your faith helped you in your career, in your show jumping? Tell us how that integrates into when you're about to start a new course or a new, you're going to do a new show. How do you tap into what Christ has to give you for that moment in that spotlight?
yeah, definitely. My faith has been the backbone to my career. I rely heavily on, praying before I go in the ring for safety and guidance, and also that, God's will be done in all aspects, good and bad. Honestly, I try to take all the things that come, with a grain of salt. If there are things that discouraging things or negative things that, or someone might call negative, I try to look at it as just not my time yet, or God's way of protecting me or my horses from something worse, or so I always try to look at it in a positive light, because God works all things to the good. And you know I just try to be better, be a better servant to him
Mm.
and better follower of Christ. And it's super hard. Obviously, it's a daily grind, and just hoping that I'm on the right track and doing things the way I'm supposed to, for him.
I
So
think sometimes it's as easy to just not shying away from it. This is what I believe. This is who
yeah,
I am. I don't care what you guys think.
yeah,
This is what I believe is true about life. It's I believe the Bible is the revelation of reality. It literally is the rule book. Here's how things got in the way they are. Here's how we can fix them. Here's what is true. There's never been anything like this. There's never been a religion, and thank God to the Jews. There's
yes,
never been a religion like it that was so documented as to these edicts that God said, I'm one and there is none other. And here's what I want you to live like. And giving women rights and children rights. And there shouldn't be slavery. All started in Judaism and
yeah,
then transformed and grew in Christianity that changed the world, created the West. There's nothing like it. There's no belief system like this. I still have a lot of challenges in my life. Certainly don't behave the way I wish I would at times, but the Bible admits that. Hey, the things I want to do, I don't. The things I
yeah,
don't want to do, I do. I love how honest the Bible is. It's not a book that acts like everything's great once you become a Christian. Sometimes it's
yeah,
worse. Sometimes it's
yeah,
worse.
yeah,
And I think what it tries to teach us is not to think that everything's supposed to go our way. It's supposed to teach us to the maybe the most difficult thing that you can learn, to be content in all things.
yes.
That's hard to do,
It's so
especially
hard.
when you're somebody of your ilk who wants to win.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm guessing when you go in, I want to be first every time.
I used to be that way. I'm not anymore. I've become very content in whatever is meant to be is going to be. I'll go out and do my best, and of course, like it'd be nice to win, but before I used to try so hard to win. Younger, your angst is more. But as I've gotten older, I've become so much more content with the journey and my purpose,
Yeah.
and venturing out into different avenues, and doing different things, and my family and all the things. So not so much winning driven anymore.
Do you believe that then that your career, your skill, um, is sort of your ministry? Basically, it's your purpose in life is to tell God's story through the avenue of show jumping. I mean, is that kind of what you feel like it has that bigger meta narrative to it?
Yeah, I definitely think now, I think those doors have been opened, to me, especially in this past year and a half, with what's been going on with Israel. And, it talks about God calling us to such a time as this. And I believe there's a reason I was chosen and moved over to Israel when I did. And was competing at the Olympics when I did for Israel, with the war going on and all of these things. Like, I believe that each step has a purpose, and God's purpose, and, just trying to kind of continue on his plan for my life and try not to go out on my own, and just pray that he guides me to the right doors and the right path.
Mm. But one of the things he definitely did was give you a strong, powerful, committed, courageous mother. I can tell you
Yes,
that.
he did.
I'm so impressed by your mom and her boldness
Yeah.
and her just standing for what she believes is true. Well, listen, I thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to have just one last question. It's just for my subscribers. It's a magic question only they get to listen to. For those who join the mighty 10,000, who are 10,000 people who want to be disciples for Christ. It's $3 a month. I was thinking about you were feeling, for your grandmother, lost your grandmother. Obviously, you're a sensitive person. You're a woman and strong, but sensitive. And that's a beautiful part of the feminine mystique. I love it. So I was thinking about your horse, Donatello, that you've done so much with. Well, he's getting old. I mean, right? Well, they were getting older. And so I was wondering, how have you ever thought about, one day he won't be here. and how you think that will affect you. Obviously, you're going to be incredibly broken up by, but I mean, have you ever thought about how you're going to even get through that? Because it sounds like he is the special horse you've had in your life in your entire career. How are you going to manage that? Hey guys, I'm interrupting my own interview. If you want the answer that you haven't heard yet, go to bradstine.com and join one of the 3 tiers. It is the militia of the mind, it is the warrior level, or it is the special forces. And then you'll get all kinds of special content and bonus answers to make you smarter than you could ever imagine. Go there now, jump on and join the Mighty 10,000. Thank you for what you're doing for Israel and bringing status to them. Thank you for just being the best you could be as a Christ follower in all that you do, because it's a representation of the body, and that's important that we all are absolutely all in. Seek to be disciples, not Christians, disciples, and to just to represent God in all that we do, and then hope that one day we'll hear him say, "Well done," because we're doing the best we
All
can.
you want. Yeah.
Folks, you know, it's important that you stand up for what you believe. And sometimes the best witness you can have is just be great at what you're good at. Just let that be your witness. Be the best cobbler there is. Be the best show jumper there is. Be the best mechanic there is. Show Jesus just in your day to day, because people need to see there's some hope out there, because it sure is difficult to find. Remember, if they ever say you're politically incorrect, always say thank you for the compliment. That's the last thing you ever want to be, especially as a Christ follower. And this is God's comic, Brad Stine. And this is Brad Stine Has Issues, and I'm just doing what I'm called to do, putting the woke